it's my privilege to introduce Norwood Teague. I could read you his background and all of his accomplishments, but I think all of you know he's done a tremendous job to have this job as athletic director at the University of Minnesota. And it's really inspirational to see the planning that's been going on and the goal setting. And also, he's a man of faith. Norwood Teague.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here, Lee. Thank you for the invitation. Lee is on our staff part-time. I don't know if you know that. He works for us. No, I'm kidding. He does a lot for us, and he and Louise are sweethearts. They joined us this weekend as we went to Chicago and beat Northwestern. So that was a very, thank you. It was a fun weekend, and it was really great to see our kids respond in the way that they did, and also to have Coach Kill there, who showed up at the last minute without telling anybody. We knew he was coming about 5 minutes before the game, which was absolutely terrific. And then he spoke to the team at halftime, and then after the game as well. So it was a lot of fun. I'll talk about football here in a second. I just wanted to recap part of my first year. I started this job 15 months ago, and it's been an absolute thrill for me to be Director of Athletics here at the University of Minnesota. We have so much potential and so much upside in the next 5 to 6, 7 years that it just really motivates me every day. We have had a lot happen in my first year, and a lot of it has been very good in building the base for the future. We just announced a very large capital campaign and facility plan for the future, and that's taking a lot of my time right now, and it's going to be a lot of work, but it'll be a lot of fun as well. It'll primarily be support facilities that we'll need around the Bierman area, which is right on 15th Avenue, and it's where our kids practice every day, where they will eat every day, and where they'll study a lot as well. So we've got a lot to do there, but it's going to set the table for us moving forward. Mentioned on the last year's been eventful. Besides for football, we hired a new basketball coach, Richard Pitino, and that took a lot of time in March and April for me, but it was a lot of fun, especially when I turned off Twitter and email and started focusing on hiring a coach rather than listening to everybody hit me on Twitter like they do sometimes. But we really landed a great guy to be our coach, and a great basketball coach. He obviously comes from a great pedigree. His father, Rick Pitino, won the national championship at Louisville this past year. And I ended up going back to a coaching tree that I had gone to personally before to hire a basketball coach. I also hired Shaka Smart at Virginia Commonwealth, where I was athletic director until a year and a half ago. And Shaka worked for Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan is the two-time national championship winning coach at the University of Florida. And I heard Shaka from his staff at that time. And Richard had worked for Billy for 2 or 3 years about a year ago. So I went back to his tree, and it proved successful one time, at least for me, and I know it will again for all of us having Richard here. When I called Billy Donovan about Richard Pitino, he told me a little story. He said, Norwood, you know that Rick Pitino, his dad, is known to be very ruthless on his assistant coaches, very demanding. Demands a lot of them from a scouting perspective, from a recruiting perspective, from a just overall being an assistant perspective for him. And I said, yeah, I did know that, Billy, and I knew he was tough. He says, but let me tell you something. There's 2 people that Rick Pitino was unmerciful on, more than he was tough on any other assistant coach that he's ever had. And he said, one was me, Billy Donovan, and the other one was Richard Pitino. So I knew then that he had been under the fire of his dad, and he'd also coached with Billy Donovan. And even before that, Richard had been around the country coaching or being an assistant coach for some other coaches. So he had really a wealth of experience. He had 1 year at Florida International down in Miami. He inherited a really tough situation, and they won 18 games and were 1 game from going to the NCAA tournament with really a patchwork job that he did, and he had a great year. So they're off and running. Richard's recruiting. Probably will announce some commitments here very soon, some additional commitments that he'll have. And I encourage all of you to come out and see our men's basketball team play. This year's going to be interesting, but he's going to put it together. And we just got a kid eligible from Bloomington, actually, a kid by the name of Joey King, who played at Drake last year and transferred back to the U, and we got him eligible immediately. He's a 6'8" kid, so he'll help down low, and we're gonna have a good time. So Richard was obviously a highlight of the year. And another announcement that I always mention when I speak to clubs like this is that the Big Ten expanded this past year, and we announced that back in the winter or the spring, and we added Maryland and Rutgers to the Big Ten. Controversial, I guess, a bit, but a very good play for the Big Ten and for us as far as really having a presence on the East Coast moving forward. Maryland is definitely kind of Washington, D.C.'s team. That's a market that we need to be in from a television perspective and also a recruiting perspective. D.C. is the 5th largest media market in the country, a growing market, a very financially vibrant market, and one that we wanted to put our footprint on. Rutgers brings New York City, so that's another a good plot on the East Coast that we've captured. We hope moving forward the next couple of years that it'll help our TV revenue when we go back and renegotiate our deals with ABC, ESPN, and others, because when you go back into those markets and you have a team like that in your league, it can garner more revenue as you relate or as you negotiate with your TV partners. So that will be interesting moving forward. And a lot will ask me, well, are we going to play them that much? We will some. They're not going to be in our football division, but we'll play them in basketball periodically and off and on in football. So it won't interrupt any rivalries, and I think it'll be pretty seamless as time goes on. This fall has been eventful as well. As you know, Coach Kill has struggled with an epilepsy condition, one that we've been dealing with every day, and he is really doing well right now. He has taken a brief leave of absence from the program, and he may be back this week. We're not sure. It's just a condition that is, as I've said before, it's not a black and white thing. It's a moving target, one that he has to really go after. And what he's been trying to do these last couple of weeks is get as many tests and as much in-depth analysis from his doctors as to what is going on with him. And we're pleased that he's making a lot of progress. Again, he drove to Chicago for the Northwestern game and was there and looked great. And he should be around some this week. But it's been interesting, because there's a lot of people who have different opinions about that. I get a lot of letters, a lot of phone calls about it, and we're trying to handle it as professional as we can and be as supportive as we can of him. But we've won 5 games, one more, and we're bowl eligible. We don't exactly meet weak teams going forward. We have Nebraska, we have Wisconsin, we have Penn State, we have Indiana, and we have Michigan State. So it's not an easy road, but that's the Big Ten, and that's what we're in. And I'm pleased that we're at the point where we've won 5 games. We have a big game this weekend versus Nebraska. Should have we already are sold out on our regular seats. We just got to figure out some extras that we have as it relates to the students. So it should be a good crowd. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff, and we'll go after them. They're a good program as always and a good team, but we're going to be ready for them. So it'll be a lot of fun. Let me open it to questions. I just wanted to cover 3 points, and any other questions about Coach Kill or Richard Pitino or Gopher hockey for that matter, or anything else? Questions?
So talk a little bit about the girls hockey and volleyball.
Hockey, our women's hockey team has won 59 in a row. In other words, they went 40. How many did we win last? 40, I think 48 last year, and we won some the year before and into this year. So we won the national championship back to back, and our head coach Brad Frost has done a great job. But I told him he's 58-0 and he's on the hot seat. His job could be in trouble because he's not doing a very good job, and he laughs. But they're incredible. They absolutely just are intimidators on the ice, and they're really great women. They do well academically, and they're a great group. Lee mentioned our volleyball team. Our volleyball team is highly ranked in the country, doing a great job. Beat Michigan and Michigan State at home this weekend. Our coach is Hugh McCutcheon. He's in his 2nd year. You may have heard of Hugh. Hugh was the Olympic volleyball coach for the U.S. women in London and the men in Beijing. In the Beijing, they won the gold. In London, they won the silver. So we've got quite a ringer with us here in the Twin Cities with Hugh McCutcheon, and we got to do all we can to keep him in the future because he's taken our volleyball program to new heights. Women's soccer's done very well this fall. We've been ranked in the top 25 and out, in and out, but we're a very good program, improving all the time, and very young. So got a lot to be proud of as it relates to women's soccer as well. Any other questions, football related, or? Yes, sir.
What sports have the best graduation rates?
It's a good question. You know, it changes every year, and I'm a little. We just got new rates that we haven't made public, and we've got our old rates. Our overall rate for our overall program was 74%, which is is very high. We even had last spring, each program, every team that we have, all 25 sports, had an average GPA of a 3.0. So that was quite an accomplishment. As far as the highest, I'm not sure if it was one of the tennises. I really can't remember, to be honest with you, individualized. But we've been very strong. Really pleased with what we've been doing from an academic standpoint. Our kids have done a good job, and it's a credit to the coaches too, because they hold their hands to the fire and make sure that our kids study and do a good job. So we're pleased with that. Very pleased with that. What else? Yes.
Well, my group of friends are really supportive of your decision with Coach Kill, and I just really want to commend you for making that really
Thanks.
tough decision. And I just we've had him here. He was a wonderful speaker, and we give him all of our support. But talk a little bit about your capital campaign. What exactly are you trying to achieve?
She asked about our capital campaign, what we're trying to achieve. We're primarily going to do 5, 6, or 7 projects. One is an academic building for our student athletes, for tutoring, studying, meetings. Right now we have about 10,000 square feet for that, and most Big Ten schools average about 30,000 square feet. So we're behind there, and we've got to get caught up. We also want to build a men's and women's basketball practice facility. We're limited with space right now, and we have to monitor or cater their class schedules around awkward practice times because we're crowded in Williams Arena. So we want to build that. We also want to build a football complex, primarily an indoor area for them. The current indoor leaks. It's old. It was built in the early 80s, and we got to get rid of that. We're also doing a women's gymnastics building for practice, a wrestling building for practice, and also a training table for food. They can eat 1 meal a day at the training table, and we really need to do that because we're doing it all over campus right now, and we're just behind. You know, when a kid comes in to see us and goes to see 2 other Big Ten schools or 3 other Big Ten schools, we're way behind in that area. We have TCF Bank Stadium, a crown jewel, but we need it now for our day-to-day. Because, you know, at TCF, they're only there 7 days a week. 7 days a year. Even though the press box and all the suites are used for outside events, every day. But our day-to-day is where we're behind, and that's what we're going to do, the sole reason for the capital campaign. In the back.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about the Vikings and coming on the TCF for a couple of years, official improvements being made. Is that football for the football program?
Yeah, we're not sure what they're going to do yet as far as amenities or extra additions to the stadium. We're just not really sure. They've talked about putting heating coils underneath the turf. That could help us. It may help us on our last game of the year. They would need it more for their December games. There's some other amenities, possibly putting some temporary bleachers in the open end zone, but we're not sure what they're going to do right now. But we feel good about it. We think it'll be a good 2 years. It'll be nice to have them over on campus. It'll be great branding for us in that, you know, they're going to be on national TV and be from the University of Minnesota Stadium. So that's good for us. And they are going to pay. We'll probably put all that money in a fund to keep the stadium up over in the coming years, because we really don't have enough in reserve for the stadium maintenance and upkeep right now. And we have some, but just not enough. But it'll be interesting. You know, it'll be a lot of different, a different crowd coming over to the stadium. But we've worked with them closely on it and feel like it'll be a good deal for everybody. Anything else?
So what is your total? You mentioned you have 25 programs, right? What's the total budget for both revenue?
He asked about how many programs we have in the budget. We do have 25 programs. Our budget is $84 million, which sounds like a ton, and it is. But I'll tell you what, we have 750 student athletes. We have about half of those on full scholarship, and we pay that money back to the university. We pay, if you're out of state, we pay out-of-state tuition. If you're in-state, we pay in-state tuition. So it's about a $9.5 million bill we pay back to the university every year. we are lean. I know you think I'm crazy for saying that. $84 million sounds like a lot, but we really are. And where we, because we sponsor our Olympic sports at a high level. They have good operating budgets. They're all fully funded from a NCAA perspective, meaning that the maximum amount of scholarships per sport that are allowed by the NCAA, we give that amount of scholarships. Whether it be women's swimming or men's track, we give the maximum amount of scholarships. Where we really have our growth, besides for the capital campaign, but that's for buildings, for our yearly revenue, is Big Ten money coming up, hopefully for expansion and renegotiating the TV contract. That's a biggie. It's forecasted to be more. We'll have to see until they get finished doing that. The other area where we're really behind, for example, Wisconsin and Iowa, is the amount of money we generate out of our football stadium as far as ticket sales and the gifts associated with tickets. How many of you in here are a season ticket holder in football? Is anybody a season ticket holder? How many come to single games occasionally? So you go in the stadium, you know that. What happens with football, much like basketball too, if you buy a season ticket, you also have a gift to the Golden Gopher Fund. All schools do this, and that pays for our scholarship bill. We're about $10 to $15 million behind every year, Wisconsin and Iowa, as far as the amount of revenue they generate there. And that's an area we have some real upside that we've got to hopefully maximize going forward. So it's a business as well as an educational enterprise, and it's my responsibility to balance the budget, which is daunting sometimes. But we do a good job. We try to be smart with our revenues and our expenditures, and try to maximize everything we can without being over the top. So it's a big budget to manage, put it that way. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Well, besides football and basketball, what are the top revenue-producing sports?
Right. The only sports that produce revenue for us are football, men's basketball, and hockey. And really after that, everybody else deficit spends pretty deep. It's because there's really no way for them to make money besides gate receipts, and that's never going to make up the gap. So we're fortunate here at the U that hockey does make a good amount of money for us because they pack in $10,000 to $11,000 per game. We have some TV money from hockey, and that's very, very helpful. But it's a different deal because those sports pay for everything else. And you may hear sometime in the NCAA right now, or talking about the NCAA right now about paying student athletes. I don't know if any of you have heard about that argument. It's an interesting argument. But if we start paying football and basketball players, think what that would do to our budget and for all of our Olympic sports. And I think we can do more for them from maybe a career and a life perspective, but paying them is a different deal. And there's a lot of media momentum or a lot of media discussion on that right now, and I don't know if those that report on it truly know all the facts of what goes into an $84 million budget. It's not our kids are not driving, they're college kids. And I saw one of our offensive linemen drive by the other day in a car, and I swear the wheels were about to fall off the car. They're not exploited, or they're not catered to kids whatsoever. They're in school, they're in class, they go to practice. They do the right things. They talk about jersey sales. If you have, like last year we had I think Marquise Gray's jersey was being sold, and this year Philip Nelson's jersey is being sold. How much do you think we make off that as a department on those? Probably $10,000 off that from just the jerseys being sold. So the TV money is a lot, but it pays for everything else, and that's not what always the media reports. And there's a law called Title IX, a federal law called Title IX that the media never talks about too, as relates to this. And it's a great law. It provides equality for men and women, and we fund our women's sports not just because of Title IX, just because it's the right thing to do. But the media never reports that. And you have the cases like Johnny Manziel. I don't know. He if he wants to leave, he can leave and go to the NFL. But he has no assurances there. We tell our student athletes, and granted this is probably chump change to what you're talking about, but if you're on a full scholarship at the University of Minnesota, whether you play volleyball, whether you play or you're a men's swimmer or whatever it may be, if you're on full scholarship and stay for 4 years, we invest $250,000 in you in those 4 years. That means your scholarship we pay for, the food we pay for, the books we pay for, the travel, and everything into that. And that's a pretty conservative number. You could elevate that easily. So, I don't know. It's an interesting argument, but it's hard to slice out the person to pay when you've got so many other athletes that are on the field, and how do you equate that? It's tough. One thing that would be interesting to do, though, and we've talked about this at the Big Ten level and at the NCAA level, is to start maybe helping kids based on need. And if a kid is on a Pell Grant and has a lot of needs, maybe you allocate some funding for them in some way to help them. Where we really get in trouble is salaries have escalated for coaches. That's been an area that causes a lot of the pushback, and just the TV money coming in. But again, it funds everything we do, and we're hoping for more, just to compete. Lee?
You mentioned 84 million. What are these other Big Ten budgets that are way more?
We're probably in the bottom third. Ohio State's at about 130, 140 million, but they have some more sports than we do. So we're in the bottom third, and that's interesting as it relates to when you hear that large number. Sir, in the back.
Is there any discussion at the NCAA level? They agree about not paying the athletes, but there's a lot of demands on these athletes. And is there some way that they're to get an education? Could they stretch the time for graduation so they can finish their degrees?
We can pay.
It's not for a student, for instance, who goes to play football, wants to be an engineering major. That's a pretty tough thing to do for them. We
can pay for 6 years right now for you to get your degree. So you really got a good window to get a degree. We are constantly paying, and this is legal and something we want to do. If a kid is, say, even a fifth-year kid or a four-year kid, if they're done or if they're finished classes in May and they have maybe 3 classes they need to have to graduate, we'll pay for summer school, even though they're long gone. Or we've even paid for kids to come back in the fall to finish up, even though they're not participating at all. We do that a lot and want to do that because they're trying to get their degree and they've had a lot of demands on them during the time period that they're there.
Can you talk a bit more about that? What do the students do to balance? I went to U of M and I remember thinking I had athletic friends and they had crazy schedules, and that was about 10 years ago. I imagine it's even busier now. Can you talk about a little bit about what their lifestyle looks like in a day? There's
a lot of demands on them. He asked about their lifestyle and what we do to help them along the way. One is our academic area. It helps them a lot with, not helps, but we have tutoring. We have study halls and study hours. They can go, and we have computer lab. That's one area we want to expand because it's very crowded. So we help them a lot there. We try to help them with one meal a day that can be right there, easy to get, quick, nutritious, and we do that as well. Besides for those two, there's not much you can do besides just be with them and have great coaches and great leaders around them who are respectful of their time and respectful of what they're up against. But it's it's almost like being at a military academy sometimes for the time demands that they have and the things that they do.
And in the summer and fall leading up, what sort of hours say the football team would someone put in at, say, the average day?
Football team in the summer, and they would get to, they probably have an 8 o'clock class. They'll go to class till about 2. Then they'll go and watch film, get ready for practice, have about a 2.5 hour practice, eat with the team, and then study at night. Yeah. Jack?
What about payments to poor families to come watch their sons or daughters play? Coach Knight is a major critic of the NCAA, especially with regard to, in those days, basketball in the tournaments, because he said here the NCAA is making tons of money on tournaments, and yet the poor family down in Florida or New York or California or whatever has a very difficult time trying to get to see games.
Jack asked about having the ability for kids that families that don't have the means to get to see their kids play, especially in the NCAA tournament. That is exactly one of the areas where we're talking about implementing or has been talked about from an NCAA standpoint, to put that in place to allow families to come at certain times to see their kids play and provide that type funding.
Because it's really a violation right now.
Oh yeah, definitely is.
It's a violation to invite someone to Thanksgiving dinner.
Not if it's they call it an occasional meal. I think you can do that if it's an occasional meal. There's all types of, you got to be a law. Our compliance book is that thick. When I started in college athletics at the University of Virginia in 1992, we had no compliance director. Now, most schools at our level and Virginia's level have 8, 9, or 10. We have 9 at University of Minnesota. And they are busy all the time. And it's just the way things evolve. I'm showing my age. Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about brain injuries in football.
Brain injuries, they're concerning. I mean, we don't have as many, it seems, that the NFL has. We don't have the amount of concussions, it seems, that the NFL has. And it's, the guys that are having trouble now, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems from what you read, most of it's NFL generated. I'll tell you this, the helmets have changed. You'll notice helmets come in a whole lot further on the chin now, which is very good. Coaches are teaching much more of the heads-up football. In other words, don't lead with your head. There's a whole lot more penalties as it relates to leading with your head, either on the offense or defensive side. We've got to continue to do more because the kids are bigger and NFL guys are bigger and faster. So when you run into each other, it's more of a pounding there. So it will be interesting to see how it rolls out, but there's a program called Heads Up Football that's going on right now around the country that the Big Ten has really gotten behind. It starts at the youth age, and it teaches kids to tackle with their head up. Because when I was in Little League and Junior League and even in high school, we were taught to lead with our head. And if we can teach them to lead with their head up, it'll certainly be a step in the right direction.
With the talk about the TV contracts and the schedules and bits that they keep, by all rights, a lot of these college kids are celebrities. How do they balance their personal lives with the public life and being a role model to many, many younger kids?
They do their best, for one, and we do a lot with them personally. We have a whole department of student-athlete services, even at the U, where we do a ton with them as far as growth off the field and out of the classroom. We do a lot of community service. I mean, we're doing something every day. And we have a total program, a total person program, and that I feel like does a great job. Our kids leave and they've really grown up. And there's a lot of balancing, but that's part of life, and they're learning it earlier. One last one.
We think about the revenue producing sports a lot, but it's my impression of you always finishes quite high in the Sears Cup every year, and maybe you can speak to what that is and how.
Yeah, the Sears Cup is the ranking of your overall sports. In other words, it's every sport has a calculation, and at the end of the year, you're ranked. And we were 22nd last year. The year before, I think we were about 18 or 19. So we've done very well in that. And where, there's about 6 Big Ten schools that always finish up in that area, and we do that because we just have our overall program is absolutely terrific. Thanks for mentioning that. Thank you.